Well, hello to everybody here. My name is Eric. I work here at Oregon State University. My boss is in the back, so I'm real nervous. We're going to talk about sound in the classroom for outside of the classroom. We have, when I got here, we were doing a lot of distance education using our classrooms that had television cameras and microphones, and we pushed stuff out, and you could have interactivity. And as times have progressed, things have changed. Digital technologies have made it easier than ever to screw things up. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you want to avoid that are easy traps to fall into when it comes to trying to extend the classroom beyond the walls of the classroom. We have an eCampus function on campus where they have a production unit that goes and produces wonderful modules for classes that are part of the eCampus thing. And it's just like little films that they're making for classes. That's not what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about mostly recording and actual distance two-way actions. Okay, it's working. So why I'm here, I have a long history as a sound engineer, a recordist. I've been working in higher education for about 25 years. I've been doing two-way stuff. I've been doing recorded stuff. We suck stuff in and spit it back out through Kaltura. I have done a lot of instruction for projects that I do outside of Oregon State University. And I've seen how some people have had their systems sort of much more kludgy than ours. We've developed a lot of what I think are, if not best practices, really good practices here. And so my technical understanding and my pedagogical understanding, I think, is going to put me in a good position to tell you what to do or what to look out for. Oh, yeah. And I really did it because I get a tote bag. I worked in PBS. Tote bags are very important to me. This tote bag carried a heavy deck. That's Harry, my sound recorder, my videographer. I started as a sound recordist, which is a title you don't see very much anymore except at the end of movies. This was the kit I often used. I'm an analog guy, big fluffy mic and a big Nagra, okay? My job was to get the really good sound so the stories we were telling could be heard. Because if the governor says something and all you see is his lips flapping, it really doesn't mean anything. Technologies have changed. My recorder's a lot smaller, and I can record for days on that thing. And I love that because I'm a taper. But what I want to talk about is not the technology. This is not a technical, here's the gear that will fix this. Or if you hear that, here's the button you need to push. This is about psychoacoustics. This is an engineer named Fred Portnoy back in New Hampshire when we were doing a barbershop festival of all things. We had all these barbershops in a high school performing. He was the one who first introduced me to the concept of psychoacoustics, which is very simply put, how the qualities of sound affect the reception of the content of your sound, which is an obvious thing that you don't think about. Right now, you can hear me fine because I'm in the room and you can see my lips moving. But for the people out there, you've got to remember there's people out there. They're relying on technology to get this information clearly. And we do that through different types of signal processing. In the room, you guys are not paying attention to the noise outside the door because you've already figured out, oh, that's just the hallway noise, I can filter that out. If that noise was coming through a microphone, because I'm standing in front of this microphone, for example, instead of speaking behind it, that's going to be difficult for people on the far end here. Again, this is obvious stuff, but it's stuff that people don't think about. The signal processing that you do in your head, the analogy I like to use is if you ever gone on a really nice drive down the country, you're driving down the gorge and you're like, wow, look at that vista, and you stop and you take out your phone, you snap a picture and you go back, look at this picture I got, this beautiful vista, and then you see, oh, what are those railroad tracks or the telephone lines in the bottom of the frame? You didn't see those with your eyes because your eyes are connected to a great visual processor. Your ears are the same way. You're constantly filtering stuff out. So when we aren't in here with our ears, we're having to rely on the technology. So far, have I gotten beyond anything obvious? Probably not. Right now, Jason's saying, he said 3 minutes. I'm about ready to go. The effect of acoustics in classrooms has been widely studied. If you go on the tour tomorrow of Link, you're going to see some beautiful rooms. We have a room that holds 600 people in the round. And you can have a conversation just like this with somebody on the other side of the room. The acoustics are marvelous. And the reason we spent the time and energy and dollars to get that room set up that way was because when you're trying to, if you're an instructor and you're trying to reach 600 people, they need to be able to hear you in the room. Rooms are going to be set up so that they can be heard in. So the learning space design is going to matter. If you look on this picture, there's plenty of seating, there's nice light, people can take their notes, you can see on the screens really well. The instructor is actually nicely lit there. There's some nice speakers on the wall so the people in the far corners are going to be able to hear even if they're not right up against the stage. This room is designed in the round. There's 360 degrees, and the instructor is going to be able to be heard everywhere. This is a challenge in a situation where you have to share visually. This is more of a challenge visually than for audio when we're trying to do something in that classroom, because as people are turning around, you got to follow them with the cameras. Otherwise, you're going to have this. So we have cameras all the way around the room. Easily enough, though, she's got a microphone, so it makes it easy. And that's why I just want to give you a sample real quick. This was a class I recorded, and I'm using this because when I recorded it, I saved the stems. So I have the camera microphone, and I have another microphone. So I just want you to hear what a lot of recordings of classes.
Students get upset if they don't get good grades. So that's always fun. So physical geography is very simple. It's understanding the processes that shape the surface of the Earth. The reasons I give for taking the class are to make long road trips and long flights fun, because you can look at the landscape below you or past you. You can understand why it is that you're flying over it. It can also be that, for some reason, geography is great if you're not in trivia teams. If you know your geography well, both physical and human geography, you'll always be the person they want to have in their trivia team.
Everybody knows what he said, right? Everybody followed that? Not very. I heard somebody said not very well. You, sir, who said that? You get the Catchbox. That way the people on the far side can hear you. Why didn't you hear it very well?
It sounded to me I wasn't hearing him directly. I was hearing a reflection of him.
You were hearing, the microphone was about 12 feet away from him, pointed towards the audience so that I could actually get people shouting, hey, what's that map mean? So that wasn't his microphone, okay? I can't tell you the number of times, and I'm sure this, if any, how many of you are responsible for getting content from something somebody recorded into the web so it can be played and shared around, okay? How many times has somebody come to you and said, I have this video, can you make it look better? Let's put some slides in it, because I really don't like the way we'll just put our PowerPoint slide. That's easy, right? And then they say, can you make it sound better? Come on, raise your hands, it's all happened to you. And you say, I can't do that. Well, don't you have a box you can put it through? Yes, it's called a time machine. And when I build that, I'll come back and fix your audio when you're shooting it, because you really can't fix that stuff in post. So, if I hit the right button here, you'll notice, come on, there we go.
Teach, because students can get upset if they don't get good grades. So that's always fun. So physical geography is very simple. It's understanding the processes that shape the surface of the Earth. The reasons I give for taking the class are to make long road trips and long flights fun, because if you can look at a landscape below you or past you, you can understand why it is that you're flying over it. It can also be that, for some reason, geography is great if you want to be in trivia teams. If you know your geography well, both physical and human geography, you'll always be the person they want to have in their trivia team.
Who knew he was talking about trivia teams before? Okay, you caught it. You caught it. So not everybody raised their hands real quick. What's the difference between those two clips? One was the camera mic, way away, and the other one, he had one of these. Okay, so I'm going to go through some obvious rules very quickly. And I call them obvious rules because that way they are ORs. And of course you're here in Oregon. Because I'm clever like that, or so I tell myself. Our job is to improve the remote experience. If we are trying to get content that's happening in a room, and we're focused on classes, but we do conferences with our research office where they're explaining how to do this, and you start having conversations about, well, what about that line there? And you have to be able to convey that to the far side. We have technology, microphones, signal processors. But most important is the techniques and knowing how to use those tech tools. You all do, I'm sure, but you don't think about it all the time. So when you're not thinking about it, you're not sharing that with the people who are going to use it. I'm a film guy. If it was up to me, all the classes would be recorded like this. I don't think that's really the most optimal way to do that. If only because they won't pay for my son. So first obvious rule. There's nothing new here, but much of this is often overlooked. I'm going to read my slides. No. The first obvious rule is going to put the microphone close to the source of what you want to record. Obvious. How many people have had that camcorder recording where they said, camera's way back there in the corner, and they want it to sound better? In our classrooms, we have the technology built in to do that. At the very least, this, even a simple setup like this, if this is all you have, you tell people, stay back here, and the microphone will pick it up. It's simple but effective. Very few times will you walk into a room where there's a microphone on a lectern these days. So cut the cord and use some sort of wireless technology. If you can put the microphone on the person, obvious rule, it's going to be easy for them to do what they do. I'm roaming around. I have a microphone here. It's always in the right spot if it's hands-free. If I have to hold a microphone, it's not going to work. One of my favorite Monty Python sketches from way back, and this one always leapt out at me. And when I started working at New Hampshire Public Television, they played Monty Python, and I found it in one of our tape archives. Michael Palin is doing an interview with somebody, and he starts with the interview. And he says, so tell me, and blah, blah. Then it comes time for the next question. If you don't know how to use a hand mic, it can be very difficult. So boom, you put a lav on the person, it's going to be with them wherever they go. And in some rooms, you can get a microphone. We have in a lot of our classrooms now the headset microphones. That's putting the microphone right next to where the most important sound is coming from. Okay? Got to make sure they work. You may have seen me this morning running around with little battery packs because I help set up the audio for the streaming. I want to make sure that my batteries are working. In our rooms, we have rechargeable technology. So we want to make sure that the people are going to be trained to use them properly. That microphone does not take batteries. They're built in. It has to go into a docking station when the person is done using it. If they don't put it in the docking station, the next class is screwed. Can I say screwed? We're close enough to the coast, I should probably say scrawed. That's for you English majors out there. So self-service rooms don't have a dedicated recordist, okay? That doesn't happen here. It's going to be up to the people in the rooms to know how to use the technology. So, again, I promised obvious rules. Make sure you have a good mic placement. Make sure you've cut the cord if they're going to roam. Make sure their hands are free to do whatever they want. And train them, train them, train them. I can't talk enough about training. Faculty need to know what tools they're using. Yes, it's right there. You're ready to go.
Yes. So I was curious how your use of the headset mics, how's that been adopted? Because I see that sometimes in a venue we'll use maybe a house of worship where same guy's using the mic all the time and he's comfortable with it. But if it's multiple professors changing that out and they're not, I was just wondering what best practices you've used for that.
I don't know that we have any sanitary practices. That's where you're going with this, right?
Well, actually, some of them are afraid of the sanitary, but some people bend it to fit their head and it doesn't fit the other one. And I'm just curious.
I think we have a number of them. We have a number of faculty who use them. We have someone in the back of the room who might better. Can you speak?
I can speak very loudly. I don't need that.
You sure? It's a lot of fun. Okay.
He passed the test.
Okay. So we actually will give headset mics, check them out to the professors for the term, the ones that want to use that. There are certain rooms that we have a headset mic in addition to having the lapel regular lav mic, so they can just choose which one they want to use. So then the people wanting nice, fresh, sanitary mic, they get to have their own.
You're giving them just the headset mic, not the body pack?
Yeah, just the headset, and then, there are some places we'll have an Audio Technica, so then we have some of those in stock. Some places we have Shure, so we have those in stock, and then just figure out what room they're in. Here you go. If they're going to multiples, we'll be like, okay, here's a Shure, here's a Audio Technica, and off to the races.
So, this brings us naturally into the next apart. You can keep it and throw it in the back of somebody's head when they start talking.
Can I ask you a question
This-
before we move on?
Yes, please.
If you have users with their own microphones, don't you find that the elements have different? They're not going to be calibrated when they plug that other element into the body pack. Isn't that going to does that cause a problem for them or for the next user when they change the levels?
No. So I go in and I set it. I find the nice median between all of them because it'll have to be like the headset mic, and then the handheld will end up being a lot. I was close enough. So the handheld will have less of you'll need more gain on that. So you have to kind of go and find the proper mixture to work for everything, because we don't have a mixer to sit there and ride gain controls and stuff. So we'll use some automatic gain control. We'll do things like that.
Keaton Longworth, everybody. One of our fabulous classroom technology people. I see them scattered through the room. They're all going to chime in, I'm sure. But this brings us right to the next point. Is what I've been talking about so far only covers the presenter. Okay? So classrooms are more often than not an interactive experience, just right here. Okay? So this is where it gets complicated, because if it's an interactive experience, how are you going to involve the student's voice or the audience voice? Okay? The obvious easy one is have another microphone for them. And in our classrooms, we have the ability to have, if you have 2 instructors, there can be 2 labs. If there's 1 instructor, there can be a lab and a handheld wireless. We have 2 microphones for each room, so if you want to participate with an audience, you pass it around. Every time I do one of the research office things, I have to remind people before the event starts, this is going to Hatfield, and they're not going to hear your question. And if you ask a very complicated question that has many, many layers and intricacies that are all interwoven, and the answer is no, it's not going to help the people in Hatfield if they can't hear the question. So wait for the microphone to get to you. The Catchbox is an excellent tool for that. I like these, except for certain situations that we'll talk about. Keaton probably knows where I'm going. When you have multiple sound sources, though, you're going to multiply your issues. Again, this isn't a technical talk. Quick show of hands. Who knows what comb filtering is? Okay, so I don't have to tell you. If you have more than 1 microphone open, I'm going to tell you anyways. If you have more than 1 microphone open in a room, what you're hearing is you're hearing the stuff coming into this microphone, you're hearing the stuff coming into that microphone, you're hearing the stuff coming into that microphone. So right now, I forgot to catch your name. Is it Austin?
Yeah.
Okay, Austin's got a little mixer there. So he has this microphone off right now so that the sound that goes from my voice, from my mouth, to that wall, bounces off that wall, comes back off of this wall because it's a square room, and then into that microphone isn't going to be mixed with this microphone. You can't just put in microphone after microphone after microphone and say, I've got microphones everywhere and it's going to cover it. If you're going to try to do that, Jason's going, yeah, you can. But when you do that, you have to have some sort of brain processing them all, because the ears are going to hear what comes out of the speaker at the far end. They are not inside the room to figure out, oh, that's a reflection off of that wall. That's a reflection off of that wall. So we have DSP, digital signal processing, that we can put in our rooms. We can do things like last mic on. We can do adaptive, there's adaptive mixing. There's all sorts of things. Again, this isn't a technical talk. We can go into questions. We have some experts in the room. We can follow later on that. But when you have DSP, you find yourself, the more stuff you put in, the more options you have for failure. And you find programmers saying, well, I've got 10 classes that are going to happen in this room today. We got 7 different types of speakers. I'm going to try to find a median that's going to be good enough. Edgar Casey was a happy medium. That's about the last one that I know of. That's a cultural joke from way back when. Maybe not too cultural. DSP systems are your best friend, but they can be your worst enemy because they can exacerbate the inherent problems of having multiple things. I've done a lot of recording with 16, 32-track recording of jazz bands and orchestras. And being able to sit and adjust things very carefully, either live or afterwards in post. Oh, let's go back and do that one again and bring a little bit more of the bass in, is great. You can't do that live. consistently with the DSP and expect it to work every time, all the time. You can expect it to work pretty well most of the time. So you have to be thinking about that. How many mics are in the room? What do I want people to be able to hear? What's important at the far end? I'm very fortunate. Jason's newer. Keaton's been around much longer. I've had a lot of conversations because I have to interact with a lot of our rooms where we are doing a slightly higher level of video production than is just the built-in stuff. So sometimes I have to either interact directly with their system, or I'll go in and I say, just give me the stems and I'll mix my own damn thing. Because of these conversations, they have helped inform me in what I can expect. But I'd like to think that I've helped inform them of why am I doing it this way? Because the folks in Hatfield need that clarity that is just not good enough with the way you have it set. You're going to make compromises. If you know you're going to make a compromise, then you need to be careful and think about, what am I giving up? What am I getting in return? Some of our classrooms, we don't let people, some of our rooms, well, technically it's a classroom. Is 202 a classroom or just a room? There are rooms we have where people can't use the room unless they have an operator, because it's just, you can't just go in and say, turn that on and it's going to work. So maybe if you're doing one sort of event, you have to gauge, I need to have a body there to make sure you'll be happy with what comes out of the room. Like I said before, some things can't be fixed in post. And whatever you do, you want to keep it simple. Excuse me, this isn't a very big room, but we're doing 2 microphones in it. And everybody's going to be heard when I look at the recording later and go, oh my God, did I do that? Some things cannot be polished. So this is Bill Lunch. He's a professor emeritus of political science. He's been a pundit for OPB for the last century. And he's in our booth every week doing a ISDN connection to OPB, where they do their roundtable. And he was interviewed for the OSU 150. By the way, happy birthday, OSU. We're 150 years old. Don't look more than 125. Because of our buildings. Never mind. Jim, one of the guys in the other room, said, "Oh, you're doing a presentation. Is it going to be a stand-up?" I said, "I hope not." And I guess I was right. So they did an oral history project. I'm not trying to pick on the oral history project, but I will, because they took people like Bill Lunch, who is fortunately still alive, and we could always redo this if we had to. But they went and they did an oral history recordings with a large number of people. They had a room set up in the library. It was a little conference room, a little square box with sheetrock walls, no acoustic treatments. Put the camcorder down here next to the interviewer, put the person sitting 6, 8 feet away. And I just want you to hear this one, because I shared this with Bill, and he actually said, gosh, is there anything you can do to fix that?
Shows which had different names, and I can't remember them all. The names kept changing. The first one was called Real Time, and Real Time was on probably, if 7 days left the air in 2002, Real Time probably started in something like 90, 91, maybe 92, that's the ballpark, the early 90s.
Fortunately, the content isn't very important to you. How many of you knew, you probably caught some numbers and some dates and so forth. Turns out they had some drills doing some construction outside the room when they were doing it. Again, I don't mean this intentionally. We have this archive of recordings, many of which are better than this, but some of which are just like this, of critical people that we lost it. So it's not just classrooms. People come to the technical folks to say, how do I do this? And they didn't think to come to us, or we didn't know about it where we could say, there have been a number of things where we have said, somebody's going to do this. Let's intervene and have it go over here so it can be better. Just a week ago, we did that with a candidate for our College of Pharmacy dean. They were going to put him in a room we knew would be a craptastic recording. Somebody's in this nice Horizon room at the MU, and somebody's in this really crappy video conference room. And those recordings are going to be sent out to people who are going to choose our new dean. Is that a fair thing to do? It's probably an HR rule against it. I don't know. There probably should be. We learned about this and said, why don't we do this over here so that they could have a comparable recording, and certainly an audible recording of what the people are saying. I'm pretty much towards the end here. I put this slide back up here because the qualities of sound affect your ability to receive the sound and to interpret the sound and to digest the sound and to then think about what you heard later. What we are doing in education is we are passing information on. And information can take all sorts of forms. You're getting my information through my voice. Those folks out there, they're getting my information through signals that we created through the technology we put in the room so they could hear it. It's important for them to have the same feeling. I can't replicate the room. We're not going to do, you know, an 8K immersive 3D world for them to put the goggles on and pretend that we're in the room with me. But at least in terms of sound, we can make every effort that they get what they need so they can hear it. And that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you, because I don't find people talking about the obvious stuff anymore. Keaton and I have had many conversations about it over the years. And I've had many conversations about it with faculty. I've had many conversations about it with administrators who are using our spaces. This is why we're doing this. Please do it this way and you'll be happy. I do want to thank all of the people in academic technology, especially classroom technology. You don't know this, but we do. A lot of the presentations are possible. You're able to see them, and they're going to be able to see them later because of the hard work that they did yesterday, basically building a couple of classroom stations in here because we had some tech issues with the building. So these guys get it. And I know you get it because you're going to get it and take it back with you, and you're going to pass it on and then pass it on and pass it on. Thanks for listening to my rant. If you have any questions or comments or complaints, you can always contact me, or we can do that now. We've got time. We had 50 minutes, and I didn't want this to be a lecture. I wanted this to be a quick dump, and then, if possible, the discussion. And how many people are video people? I focused on audio. So for video people out here, I wanted you to know they've got these lens cleaners at the front desk. And maybe some comedy. Anybody have any questions? Any concerns, any stories, anything they want to share with the group that's going to make what I gave him even better? Please send him the Catchbox. Or I'll do it. No one's really thrown it yet. I'm glad he caught that, Jason.
What do you do about the horse-to-water problem with where you've got faculty and you've shown them the microphones that they need to use and they still don't remember? They don't remember to pick it up, and if they remember to pick it up, they forget to turn it on. Or if you've got a situation with students doing presentations and you get completely inconsistent results with whether or not they use the microphones or even pass the microphone from one to the other.
So I know everybody in the outside world heard that because he had the Catchbox. But the question is, I believe the quote is, you can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think. He did the horse-to-water one. You put all this stuff in the room, and they refuse to use it. It's education. Something that I have been trying, this is a drum I've been banging since I was first at the university. I've been here for 12 years. The last 2 years, we started doing something I've been banging the drum on for the previous 10. And I'm going to give a shout out to the University of New Hampshire and the academic technology folks there, where I used to work. We started there, I'm still there, I'm saying we, probably in about 1999 or 2000, we started a program we called FITSE, the Faculty Instructional Technology Summer Institute. And the goal was to get about 40 faculty every summer for a week. We tried to weight it about 2/3 new faculty, and the rest would be anybody else that wanted to participate. And we aggressively, when we started the program, we worked with HP and Apple. Anybody that came to FITSE, they walked away with a laptop. We incentivized them to say, we are academic technology. This is back when people were, we still had slide projectors. We still had overhead projectors in the rooms. People were still using chalkboards. And we were trying to get people to use smart podiums and more technology-based presentation tools. We were also trying to start the early iterations of some online classes. So if you want to take your class and record it as a class and then put it on. So we were trying to aggressively say, we're academic technology. Let's make your classes better. And then every year, we'd have people come back as ambassadors. They've been doing that. They're in their, what, 15th, 16th year of doing it. So they have over, I don't know, they probably have 900 faculty now who have been through the program and or who have been evangelized by people who have been through the program to say, this is why we're doing it. You have to have the opportunity for someone to learn and understand. You will find people who say, if your mic is off, the recording isn't going to happen. And they're going to go, I'm just going to turn the mic off anyways. I don't believe them. I mean, maybe not that drastic, but it sure feels that way. So what we've been doing the last 2 years is a symposium before our fall term where we have, you know, it applies to knowing how to put a microphone on. It applies to knowing how to load information into Canvas so that you can share your classroom. It applies to, you know, knowing how to make a PowerPoint presentation that's going to engage your viewers. It's, you know, there's so many layers of technology now that instructors have to master. You just have to help them and teach them and hope that they will absorb the lessons. And then you can also turn it around and say, well, why should people listen to you? Why should people come into your class to learn about biology? What makes you so special? Okay, you're the expert, I'm the expert, so please give me the same courtesy you expect your students to do for you. And if you are going to keep coming back to the office and say, this didn't work because of something you didn't do, then you kick it over to Christina, and she takes care of it. But no, I can think of 1 or 2 people over the years that we have essentially fired as clients. It's like, you're just going to have to, they come in and you're going to shrug. And we have, I don't know, how many faculty on campus? 3,000, 4,000? So that's pretty good odds. Anybody have a better idea? I mean, you have to find ways to educate them. You know, if we had this sort of event just for faculty and we could pack the room with 100 people every time, it's, oh, that's why we've got the Catchboxes. Any other questions, comments, concerns, complaints? I want to hear the complaints, too.
Do you guys have a teaching college here?
We do have a college of education, but it's embedded across the colleges, and then there is also more of a teachers college up in Monmouth, Western Oregon.
So my question's wondering what experience you've had in Washington State I'm at Western Washington University. The folks in the College of Education, they're required to, submit several recordings of themselves teaching out in the public schools, and they're always having trouble with the audio. They're trying to do too many things. Like we got a lot of little wireless lapel mics. They try to use that, but I also want to get the students out there. And I know you're an audio expert. We could get a little mixer and do mix in some different mics, but I just wondered if you've come up with any simple kits for folks that are, using that out in the public schools, or any advice.
Well, the Catchbox is a great tool, I find, for certain things. One thing I hate about the Catchbox, it's a really, how many of you have seen or played around with these yet? Okay? So the really neat thing about it is you can throw it, when it's in the air, it's got a little mute switch on it. So if it crashes into something, you don't have a and the rest of the time, it's just a hot mic, which is great, because if you're in a classroom, you have your instructor has a microphone and say, you can put this on a table, and everybody at the table is going to be heard. And it's fun. Hey, let's put that on my table. Okay? So you can take that and put that into, most cameras have at least 2 inputs, and record it. Or you record it on a separate audio recorder and sync it up, depending on what level of production. I find these to be very difficult in our rooms that have lecture capture, however, because if you have this microphone and you are doing your lecture capture, lecture capture is a system we use, which is essentially you record the content that's on the screen and you record the audio from the room. So the instructor says, I'm going to have a lav and I'm going to have a Catchbox so that we can have the interaction with the students. And student asks a question and then gets back to their bag of potato chips. What is the DSP going to do with that? Or the typing on the keyboard? What is the DSP going to do with these noises of its, if they put it back next to the guy in the corner of the room who sat in the corner because he was coughing? So this is a great tool. This is what I was talking about. You know, DSP can be your friend and your enemy because, yeah, this is a really hot mic and it's going to be in your mix. How do you plan for that? We don't have a mute the Catchbox on the control panel, but now that I'm thinking out loud, we probably should. You know, it could be a button on the Extron panel or the Crestron panel. Oops. They're both here. So this is, I have come to love this for remote stuff because it's not a bad microphone, and it can be moved around the room very easily. So if you have a I shot some videos for our college with some math teachers who are doing just this sort of thing. They're presenting and then they're walking around the room trying to, okay, how's your work coming? And if you could just pop that there, it's easy because it's wireless. I would recommend it. Otherwise, you get there in advance and say, I'm going to have PZMs on the tables and do it accordingly. You have a follow-up?
I was going to say, does that have a, can you get different pickup patterns for that mic? Or is it just strictly an Omni?
It's strictly an Omni. So here. Whoa! There's a projector back there. I'm a sound guy, not a visual guy. No, that's not true.
So where did you get the Trobot, this microphone?
Catchbox.com.
Oh, I thought that OSU had designed
No.
it.
That's the beauty of it. They'll customize it for you. So
Okay.
I prepared the logos, and Don sent them off, and we got a couple of them for our big classrooms. Catchbox.com. You guys owe me money.
Thanks.
No, when I go out and shoot stuff, I usually have a much bigger kit than I need because I don't know what I'm going to get into. I do a lot of location production, so I have on one occasion now actually taken that as a tool. So anything else? So Jason lasted 37 minutes. I win. So any other problems people have run into that they had difficulty solving or had success solving they want to share? Because how many of you are taking content from rooms and trying to push it out to the world? Is there anything I didn't cover? Ceiling mics.
Ceiling mics.
We have a couple of, we've been running a bunch of different ones over the years on this campus. Probably the most common that we're running that I have to interact with are the Tandberg ones that are like the clear plexiglass. They're like a big scoop, and those are great unless you really want to know what's going on. We have when you use microphones like that, unless they are very carefully spaced, you're going to have a lot of overlap. So microphone 1 is going to have a lot of what microphone 2 is hearing. Or microphone 2 is going to hear a lot of what microphone 1 is hearing. So you have your Automagic mixer, and it's saying, is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 1? Is it 2? And you'll get pumping a lot of times, depending on the program, or depending on the mixer. We have Biamp, we have Blue, we have Shure IntelliMixes. We got a whole bunch of different products around campus, and depending on what you have and how it's programmed, you might have interference. In one of the rooms we have, sometimes they are the go-to mic, and they can sound pretty good. If I'm there, and this is the 202 over in Kidder, where they can't use the room unless someone's in there, because if that's the only thing that's going to reach in the back, I can mute everything else, because I am there going, I know I have to use this, and I know it's I'm doing the signal processing in an analog manner better than the DSP is. Ceiling mics can be great. The Catchbox can be great too, and it'll suck right next to a speaker because it's an Omni microphone. So you don't want to necessarily use it with a PA system. Ceiling mics, the same thing. Depending on how you are, if you're using ceiling mics in a room that has an amplified PA, it might be, I think it's one of our pharmacy classes. There was one of the rooms that they were connecting to where they would often have the ceiling mics hot all the time until whoever was on the instructor mic would start talking, and you would get this. It was a horrible transition between the two because the amplifying sound would be bleeding into the overheads until the DSP could say, it's now we got to shift over to here. So ceiling mics can be very effective. It all depends. It all depends on. Well, ultimately, the answer to your question is the Duke Ellington rule. And Duke Ellington is the guy who somebody was talking to him and said, well, how do you know what you're making is going to be good? And the answer is, if it sounds good, it is good. If you listen to the output of what you're doing and it doesn't sound good, then I would say don't go there. Obvious. Again, obvious. Yes?
We've had good luck with that Shure microphone that they're demoing over in Diversified booth, the beamforming mic. We can set up presets, and then if the room changes, we can just change the beams on the mic and stuff. And that's worked pretty good for a ceiling mic for us.
I haven't played with those. I've heard good things about them. We used to use something similar back at UNH, and they were a multi-pattern microphone or multi-element microphone that would hang. And I just remember the rack of equipment. Back in the day, the rack of equipment was a lot bigger because DSP was on many boxes instead of one little chip. But yeah, those can be very effective, especially when they also have built into them noise cancellation functions, which were pioneered by the Grateful Dead with their wall of sound. They had two microphones in front of them so they could cancel it out and have all this wonderful sound and no feedback from the mics right in front of the speakers. So there's no problem that you can't throw enough money at. So trick is finding the money. Anything else? Or do you want to get out of here? Carl, certainly you have something to throw at me. He promised me tomatoes, and
I did. I promised you tomatoes and cabbage. No,
So-
what are the last couple words of the Star Spangled Banner?
Play ball.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
All right. Well, if you have no more questions, comments, or complaints, I'm going to thank you again for being here, for listening to me. If you have any ideas, please share them with everybody here and share them with your faculty and instructors. Make sure that they understand that you're there to help them sound good and look good. You want to get their content out to the world. And we have wonderful tools to make it happen. They just have to use the obvious rules and make it work. Thank you.